This is my thesis, that 9/11 is the central issue of our times, and it is the center of contemporary politics. It's the key to ending the Iraq War, to avoiding a wider war with Iran, to avoiding attacks on countries such as Syria, Venezuela, North Korea, and ultimately Russia and China. It is therefore the key to avoiding World War III. The thesis that I'd like to share with you at the beginning is that this is the issue that gives you the greatest bang for the buck of any issue that there is. And indeed, it's the only one that can change the course of world history over the next 6, 12, 18 months. Why so? There is in this country, I would say, a stratum of the population, it's about 35 to 40% of the United States. These are people of very low political sophistication, very low awareness, they're poorly informed, above all they are terrified. They are literally scared out of their wits. They have bought into the terror demagogy of the Bush-Cheney regime. And of course, there is no way to address them directly about issues that concern us: Iraq, Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib, torture, secret wiretapping, dictatorial totalitarian measures on the home front, black sites, renditions, and so forth. This 35 to 40% is largely impervious to all of those issues. They will say, if you confront them with any of these, this all has to be, that is the war on terror. We are defending ourselves against the September 11th attacks. You don't make any headway. You get no traction. Therefore, it is absolutely indispensable to put 9/11 truth into the center of all political activity. Are you anti-globalization? The same questions apply. Are you concerned about the situation of immigrants? The same. The demagogue Tancredo now says one of the reasons we need to put Mexicans in concentration camps is because Al-Qaeda is among them. They've been infiltrated. So this is the first refuge of every tin-horn fascist demagogue. 9/11. So therefore, I urge you not to heed the siren calls of people, I think appearing even in this hall, who have told you that the 9/11 issue is dead. The 9/11 issue is not dead. Take it from Karl Rove and read it in the great book of political reality. 9/11 remains at the center of everything. So that's my motivation to people from other directions, right? The 9/11 movement is numerically limited, but the political impact is tremendous. And if others will join in on this and integrate this into their own agitation and propaganda, we will really begin to see tremendous results. This is my book. I'm very happy to announce that this is currently the bestseller on Amazon.com. It sells... In the last several weeks, and I think generally in 2006, it has sold more copies than the official version, more copies than Mike Rupert's book, more copies than David Ray Griffin, and so on down the line. And I think that there is a reason. It's somehow correlated with the prevalence of MIHOP. If you're looking for full political MIHOP, invisible government MIHOP, rogue network MIHOP, I'm afraid my book is the only one that's originally published in English that gives you that in a relatively consistent and relatively comprehensive way, as I'll try to show you. Now, my story, again, who am I? I came to this from studying NATO spheres of influence terrorism, geopolitical terrorism designed generally to defend the Yalta division of Europe. And this is the Italian Prime Minister Aldo Moro, having been kidnapped and about to be killed by the Red Brigades. He appeared in the Italian press in a picture with the news of his own kidnapping on the front page. And behind him was a flag that said Red Brigades. So when we made this in 1978, we took out the Red Brigades flag. We put in the British flag. We could have put in the NATO intelligence flag, but not many people know what that looks like. So this gave us a greater recognition. The idea is that this was, like 9/11, a state-sponsored, false flag, synthetic terrorist campaign, similar in that sense to the German Baader-Meinhof group. This is something that I wrote back in 1991 about the tendencies you could already see under Bush the elder towards what I called at that time administrative fascism, a kind of top-down bureaucratic authoritarian repression which did not have the mass movement aspects at that time of the fascist movements, but which we now perhaps do in fact see. And here is George Bush, the unauthorized biography. This is the book that established the connection between Prescott Bush and Hitler. I won't go into any details, but the notion that Prescott Bush, the grandfather of the current tenant of the White House, was behind the rise to power of Hitler. He's part of the concentration camp management structure and also part of the management of the German Nazi military industrial complex. And you can see this book with the characteristic orange cover. Now, in terms of anniversaries, somebody said anniversaries before. Hey, Thursday was the 25th anniversary of the attempt to kill Reagan. No, wait a minute. Wait till you see. And this is a mistake, let me tell you. Reagan was wounded, right? The Houston Post, March 31st, 1981, right? That was 25 years ago, Thursday. Let me just point out, one of my big themes tonight is the question of drills, right, exercises. On that day, they had scheduled for the next day, the Friday, a presidential succession drill called 9 Lives, which indicates that part of the Hinckley operation was somehow conduited or bootlegged through the official U.S. government bureaucracy. That is, the assassination of Reagan went through the pipes of the official establishment under the cover of a succession drill. And this is what I want you to understand. If you want to have a large-scale synthetic terror operation, design it as a drill. Make it a drill that closely resembles what you want to do, so much so that replacing a few things, right? Replacing one gas with another, or powder with a nuclear bomb in a suitcase can give you the result that you want. With this kind of thing, wasn't that the basis then for a special prosecutor or some kind of an investigation? There was none because Bush the elder presided over a cabinet meeting saying that Hinckley was a lone gunman who had acted alone. So please let them not come to me with stories of conspiracy theories and paranoia when you have this kind of stuff going on in the world. This is no government of laws. This is an oligarchical zoo that we've got going, and these characters are the beneficiaries. And when you get to the Bush family, as I've documented, you are scraping the bottom of the barrel. So that was 25 years ago. So we're 25 years into a complete regime of lawlessness. Now, the kind of terrorism we're dealing with here is nothing new. This is 400 years ago last November 5th, another anniversary. Brackets, I do have a slideshow on this, which would take another 2 hours. So if people want to get it, I suppose they can come to me or they can come to the organizers. This is the 5th of November, 1605. The 5th of November, of course, is Barry's birthday, so we have to remember that. He thought that on Guy Fawkes Day they were celebrating his birthday. This is Guy Fawkes, right? These are the memes. Guy Fawkes with his boots and his spurs and his lantern going into the House of Lords. He wants to blow up the King, the Lords, and the Commons, James I, back in 1605, and he's being caught. This was blamed, of course, on the Pope and the Jesuits, and it led to the foundation of the British Empire in war with Spain and later with France. These are the patsies of that era. In particular, Thomas Percy, a double agent, Robert Winter, another very likely double agent, and the chief dupe, the kind of Zacharias Moussaoui of the group in some ways, Guy Fawkes, who seems to have gone along because he just liked military affairs. He liked the idea of blowing things up. He'd been a soldier in the Low Countries and he'd blown up fortresses, and that was his job, so he liked to do it. Of course, this guy has been demonized so much that bin Laden, of course, is a relatively mild case in comparison. This is the target, you might say, King James I, who was not witting about the whole operation in advance. But Lord Cecil, the Prime Minister, and Venetian intelligence, the great power in the intelligence world at that time, wanted to push him into war with Spain. And he didn't want to have a war with Spain. As a matter of fact, he wanted to marry his son to the daughter of the Spanish king for reasons of money and power. But the Cecils and the Venetians didn't want that, and they won out. And here is the game master of the entire thing. This is Lord Robert Cecil. If you read Shakespeare's plays, you'll find him appearing in such roles as that of Caliban in The Tempest, the misshapen monster. This is him. His father is Polonius, but we can't get into all this. He is the organizer. He's the Prime Minister of England and the organizer of the gunpowder plot. So he tries to organize what the British would call an own goal against his own government. But of course he nips it in the bud, and the king owes him everything, and his position is assured for many years to come. More recently, we've had such cases as the blowing up of the Maine in Havana Harbor back in 1898. This is the calling card of the current rogue network. In my book, I attribute the crimes of 9/11 to an invisible government, rogue network, secret team, deep state, which goes back to the group that put the bomb inside the Maine, blew it up. All the indications are that the explosion came from inside the ship, not outside. This led to the Spanish-American War and to the founding of the American Empire. This is where we go from a republic to an empire. I would point out that the invisible government actually came into existence a few years earlier at the time of Grover Cleveland, when J.P. Morgan seized control of the public debt of the United States in the name of the British banks. That's the moment that the invisible government currently comes together. So therefore I have to warn you, if you think that getting rid of Bush-Cheney will solve everything, this is a mistake. It is indispensable. I'm all for it. I work for it every day. But what we need is something much greater. We need to root out entrenched, invisible government networks of Wall Street financiers, London financiers, as well as neocons and their tools in the invisible government. The British, by the way, came along because they thought that the Germans might get the Spanish Empire, so they decided we'll give the Spanish Empire to the Americans. When Rudyard Kipling wrote Take Up the White Man's Burden, he was saying, please defend the British Empire from Germany by taking the Philippines. And this is the propaganda of the day, right? The Hearst Press. So here's the Maine, and here we have these Spaniards, right? We have algunos bin Ladenitos españoles. And they're looking through their periscope, and here's the ship, and here's the sinister underwater mine with the cables leading back, and they're about to blow it up. And it says up here, this picture fixes the responsibility to the satisfaction of the American people. But the picture is a complete fabrication. So nothing has changed. This is what we've had. This is what we have today. And of course, McKinley didn't really want the war, but he had no choice. McKinley was a whole lot better than Bush, who jumped on this immediately. So here we have the Hearst Press, right, the New York Journal, Journal American, pushing this hysterical war propaganda. We've also got the Gulf of Tonkin. This, I think, has a significance for people in the room who are maybe my age, all those people who died in Vietnam, all your friends and all the 3 million people in Indochina. Back last fall, the National Security Agency officially conceded that the Gulf of Tonkin had been a fake and that it had been done by middle-level employees covering up for their mistakes. So, too bad, 3 million dead. Think about what this means. Pause sometime in the next couple of days and think about what that meant for the agony of families and people who believed that, and the Congress that allowed itself to be stampeded with the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, just like the 9/11 resolution of September '01. Here's the equivalent of the Warren Commission report, the 9/11 Commission report. It is much inferior to the Warren Commission. It never attempts to prove anything. It starts off by assuming what you'd have to prove, and it takes it from there. That's the logical fallacy known as begging the question, petitio principi. And we had this dubious Ms. Rittenmeyer, I believe, on CNN Headline News. She happens to work